IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach Podcast, the bite-sized podcast filled with quick and easy, actionable habits. Remember, great habits create that awesome life. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And today's fun fact of the day has to do with the word ego. Did you know that the origin of the word ego is Latin? In Latin, the word ego basically means I. And the most famous use of the word, of course, comes from Freud in psychology, where he talks about the id, ego, and superego. But what is interesting is that the concept of the ego has been discussed in different spiritual practices and cultures from around the world. The ego, in us humans, plays a big role in the way we show up in the world. It can make us or break us. It can help create our perfect life, or it can destroy us and society with us. History is filled with leaders who were egomaniacal. The definition of egomaniacal is someone who considers themselves to be very important and able to do anything that they want. Think Hitler. The problem is that there are a few aspects of the ego that are good, that are essential when we are starting our journey towards self-improvement. The ego pushes us towards action. It drives us towards accomplishment. The ego is useful in starting, but we have to realize that it can get very out of control very soon. We need to realize that it can take over our lives, destroy our relationships, make us feel alone. And finally, we need to realize that we have to outgrow our ego to proceed forward. So where does this ego come from? It comes from multiple places. It can come from showering of praise that we would have received from our parents or loved ones, telling us how amazing we are. You are the best. You can do anything, etc., etc. It can also come from achievements that you hold on to, something that you were so proud of, that you did against all odds. It gives you that feeling that you did this all by yourself. It can also come from listening to the way many motivational speakers talk. That talk can inflate your sense of self. They again make you feel like it is you versus the world. The world is out there to get you, and you have to fight to survive. And haven't we all heard this? I know I have. And I've fallen for it too. The need to prove myself to everyone. The problem is that we only think about the ego as someone who is proud, as someone who is overconfident, someone who is self-centered. But that is not necessarily true. The ego can also come from a place of insecurity. I am not good enough. I am bad at talking to people. I am ugly. What happens is that sense of I begins to rule our world. People with a strong sense of I or this ego feel like there is a disconnect between themselves and the rest of the world. It feels like there is a void between themselves and other people. Hence, they only see the world as comparisons. They are here as comparisons. Me versus you. As your habit coach, I want to show you that there is no need to be putting up these boundaries. These voids between you and people around. These voids only lead to feelings of being disconnected, judged, misunderstood. The ego is a tricky thing, and I'll do lots more podcasts on it. But for now, I want you to follow a simple habit of slowly dissolving the ego. Every time you catch yourself using the word I or the word me, stop. See just how often you use this in a sentence, while talking to people, while writing. Some people have a habit of starting every sentence with the word I. And that just shows their state of mind and just how strong their sense of ego is. Instead, discuss ideas. Discuss concepts. Use words that are more inclusive in nature, like the words we, like the words us. For example, using the phrase, I think sugar is bad, versus saying something like, there is so much research out there talking about how bad sugar is. You see the difference? Or when telling a friend that you want to leave a party, you can say, I want to go home. Instead, use let's leave and go home. You see, it is a very subtle difference. But the language is more inclusive. Hence, it is not you versus the world, it is us. So your simple habit starts by stopping to use the word I or me. and begin to use the word us or we. Also begin to share ideas instead of opinions. And try this for a couple of weeks and see what a difference it makes to your relationship. And slowly it will also change your perception of self. The ego is not something we can completely get rid of. That is a state of ultimate consciousness, when you are everything and everything is you. Us mere mortals can start with these small habits and shift our mindset at first. Then who knows, we might become like the Buddha someday. Actually, cancel that. We are the Buddha already, together. So start these habits and share with us your progress using the hashtag #TheHabitCoach. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome180.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Want to wish you all a happy Diwali. Hope you had a great festive season. It's been a great week in terms of the kinds of guests we've had and the kind of conversations we've had on the network this week. Do definitely check some of these things out. On This Round's on Me with Gauri Devidayal, she had a great conversation with Garima Arora, who's one of the best-known chefs in the world. It was just absolutely riveting. Do check that out. On States of Anarchy, Hamsini Hariran spoke about chronicling India's different wars. Again, really interesting episode. Check that out. Ashdin had a very interesting episode on his show, The Habit Coach. It was called I Don't Feel Like Doing Anything. It's about how to overcome malaise just generally, and I thought really, really interesting stuff. Kumi Vayana was the guest on Cyrus Says on Monday's episode last week, and she's an educator, and my God, it was such a fascinating conversation talking about the way education functions in India and some of the changes she'd like to see. Just really, really interesting stuff. Do give that a listen. On Uncle Please Sit, Anupam Manur was there with Joel and Tushar talking about the Indian economy, part 1 of a 2-part series. Second part will be out this week. You should definitely check that out. Lastly, I want to talk to you all about the Filter Coffee podcast. Karthik Nagarajan, who hosts that show, is on a little bit of a break. He's back with a banger of an episode. It is with Himura Maya, who used to run Landmark Stores, and they talk about the culture of bookstores and quizzing and all kinds of stuff. Really interesting conversation. Do check that out. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are 2 passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to The Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.